What do you do when your ADHD strategies stop working? Not just the neurotypical ones that never quite fit, but even the ADHD specific ones that used to help and now don't. In today's episode, we're talking about what it really means when your go to strategies fail and the deeper, often invisible barriers that might be underneath. We'll explore why burnout, trauma, and nervous system dysregulation can make even the best strategies fall flat, and what to do instead to finally feel capable, clear, and grounded in who you are. If you've been cycling through hacks, planners, or apps and still feel stuck, this is the episode you've been needing. Be sure to listen. Welcome to the Self Loved ADHD Woman's Way podcast. I'm your host, Jen Barnes. If you're an ADHD woman entrepreneur, ADHD adjacent, or ADHD-ish, you've come to the right place. We'll dive deep into the unique challenges you face, from the inner turmoil to the outer obstacles. We'll blend neuroscience, IFS, and somatic healing, and explore practical strategies to help you navigate the world of entrepreneurship with ADHD with greater ease and effectiveness. I'm glad you're here. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. I am so excited to dig into this topic of what happens when ADHD strategies, whatnot, fail. And I use the word fail lightly because I think a lot of us have been told we're failures. That's not what I'm talking about. But when things you try to help your ADHD with are no longer working. So we're going to unpack that today because there's a lot of things going on. And throughout, we're going to talk about working through some of the common barriers that keep you from doing what you need to do to actually overcome the challenges of strategies failing. So stick with me through the whole thing and we'll get there. But first, I want to start with what I even mean when ADHD strategies, quote unquote, fail. Well, a lot of times we will try strategies and they won't work at all. And sometimes it's just not the strategy for us, but sometimes those strategies were developed by neurotypical people to just make us be more neurotypical, to be less ADHD. And I'm guessing maybe you know this, but you can't make yourself less ADHD because your brain is ADHD. I mean, you might be able to do it a while. I certainly did it a while. And I know people who were able to make themselves less ADHD for a while. But then eventually what happens is you're burned out from working so stinking hard just to function at whatever level. Then also you feel like no one knows you because they don't, because you've been masking so hard just to buy in our neurotypical society that no one does know you. And worst of all, you feel like you don't know yourself, like what you even want, because you haven't been showing up in ways that align with who you really are. So the chasing strategies, even neurotypical strategies, might work for a while, but eventually you're going to get burned out. Then we talk about what happens when ADHD-specific strategies stop working. Well, that can happen for any number of reasons. Number one, I just want to start out by saying our brains love novelty. Because of how our brains are wired, because we have less access to dopamine, which we need for executive functioning to feel motivated and then actually follow through. Because of that, we tend to need things to be interesting. And one of the ways things are interesting is they're new or novel or creative or a challenge. There's a whole list of things. So if you've been using a strategy for a while, it may have lost its luster. So if it stops working, that could be what it is. Sometimes there's actually something much deeper going on. And I want us to get to that. But first, I want to say, if these things are not working for you, if these ADHD-specific strategies aren't working for you, and you've tried strategy after strategy after strategy, you're not bad. You're not failing. You're not a failure. It's just that there's a good chance that there's something beneath the surface that needs to be addressed so that you can benefit from the things you've been trying. If you've heard me talk about this, then you already know, but we know from Dr. Michael Jelinek, who estimates that by age 10, ADHD kids, school-aged ADHD kids, have received 20,000 more negative, critical, or corrective comments than their non-ADHD peers. And I get it. The majority of the women that end up finding me tend to have been similar to me in that we masked through overfunctioning and high achieving. So we pushed and pushed and pushed ourselves pretty much to act as neurotypical as possible, and then overachieved. Because then we avoided the criticism that we saw other people getting. We're like, I'm not doing that. I mean, subconsciously, right? Like a little girl part of you was like, nope, not going to look stupid like that. Not going to get in trouble like that, whatever it was. So we worked our butts off throughout much of our youth, maybe even through adulthood, to avoid that criticism. Or maybe you did get it. Or maybe if you're like me, you masked really well in school settings and at work, but there were some times when it didn't work for you. So for me, it was always my locker. My locker at school was a mess. And I talked way too much. I mean, too much. According to who? According to teachers. I quote unquote interrupted, which quite frankly, neurotypical people would call it interrupting. As an ADHD woman, I see that we ADHDers do circular conversation. We do more circular conversation where we're talking together as someone sharing something. And neurotypical folks think we're rude and interrupting. We don't care about them when we do that. But in all honesty, that's the way our brains work. And that's the way we stay connected, is we get excited and engaged. Whereas if someone is just monologuing about their experience and we're supposed to just sit there quietly, we get bored. Not because our friend or loved one or whoever's telling the story is boring, but it's just our brains need more dopamine to stay stimulated. And one way we do that is through our circular conversation. But generally speaking, teachers don't love that. And our classmates don't because they find it annoying. So that was ways I got criticized and corrected. You may have gotten that too, or maybe none of it. Maybe you were a quote unquote model child and never got in trouble for anything. Your report cards never said conscientious but talks too much, like mine. Fantastic. But on some level, you were likely trying to avoid that by masking in some way. And all of that masking, all of the criticism you may have received, takes a toll. Eventually, we can get burned out. Eventually, we run out of tools. And eventually, we feel unknown by everyone else and even by our own self. And that is painful. And that is when everything that was working for us starts to crumble and not work anymore. That is then when we start to notice the invisible inner obstacles that I talk about so much. They've likely been there the whole time, but we've had parts of us holding it together, managing our lives so that we didn't ever have to experience the self-doubt, the hidden insecurity, and even the fear that we overcame by masking. And you might be like, oh no, Jen, I was never able to mask all that well. That fear and self-doubt and insecurity is right out in front of me. Great, then you already see it. Because once we can see something, acknowledge it, be aware of it, then we can work with it and truly heal. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the two pieces missing from most work with ADHD, which are things that I specialize in and can share really good information for you about, as well as share, if you want to do this work, if you're ready, willing, and able to do this work, how you might work with me. But if you're not ready, willing, and able, at the rest of this episode, I want to talk about how to get there. Because I want you to get to a place where you feel comfortable in your own skin as you are. And I'm not saying you'll never mask again. For some reason, I'm hearing that, I think it's an 80s song, I'm never going to dance again in my head. Like, oh dear. Not my favorite song, but I'm hearing that in my head. It's not like you're never going to mask again. It's just that when you do, you'll be more intentional about it. And then you will know how to function without masking more. So let's get into it. The two pieces that I see missing from most ADHD strategies is one, working with your nervous system, and two, working with these inner, often invisible obstacles. The first one, nervous system regulation. I recently did a 28-day challenge to regulate your nervous system with ADHD. And I had people sign up. It was awesome. We had people participate, and some people ended up joining my program Ascend through it because they're like, oh, yeah, let's do this work. But one of the things that became clear to me is that I wasn't clear about why it's important to regulate your nervous system. Here's the thing. Whether you are neurodivergent or neurotypical, when your nervous system is dysregulated, when you are not in your ventral vagal response, which is where you feel safe enough to connect, rest, and digest, where all your organs function optimally, where your brain is able to focus on things. Whenever you're not there, your brain, your body's only focus is survival. So if you're in your fight or flight response, it's fighting or fleeing to safety. If you're frozen, which is like the deer in headlights, you're still like parts of you are still trying to rev you up, want to get you to safety, but in some ways you feel completely stuck and frozen. Or if you've completely shut down because somewhere in your brain, your body, your nervous system, it's like, oh yeah, all hope is lost. I'm just going to give up. Where all of a sudden not all of a sudden, but as part of that dorsal vagal shutdown response, your brain starts to emit chemicals to dim the emotional and physical pain you'll experience from what your brain and nervous system believe are certain death, which I'll share a caveat in a moment. But when you're in those states, the only priority is survival, or if you're coming to the end, not feeling the pain of it as much. That means that you are not going to be able to put a lot of energy, focus, or whatever into crafting your email to your list, recording a podcast episode or YouTube video, or if you have an employer, putting ideas out there for a new project, or working on something other than your day-to-day that you can kind of go through numbly. Because your brain only cares about survival. Because it has to. Because if you don't survive that threat, it doesn't matter if you can do anything else. That's why those responses, the fight or flight, freeze, and shutdown responses are all hands on deck situations, which means all hands off deck of the other ships of doing things, if you're following me. And here's that caveat. The deal is our brains don't know the difference between a bear chasing us and feeling overwhelmed by our to-do list or a nasty look or comment from someone. Our brains don't know the difference. So we can go into our fight or flight, freeze, or shutdown responses when something milder than a tiger or bear chasing us happens. And it can be just as debilitating because, again, our only focus is on survival. It's just that we're not actually needing to fight for our lives or shut down to numb the pain of a certain death, because if it's just a nasty look from someone, you're not going to die from that unless it's like a basilisk or something. I don't know. Anyway, you get the idea. So what we need to do is learn how to work with our nervous systems. And that's the work that I started helping people with in my challenge. I'm, by the way, creating something new here, so that'll be included, but stay tuned for my next micro offer. But then it's about noticing when you're dysregulated and then helping yourself get regulated again so that you can then have the wherewithal to focus and get stuff done. And there's another piece. Chances are, if you're getting dysregulated a lot, it's because you're getting triggered. It's because something that's happening in the present is triggering something awful that happened in the past or past fears you had of something awful happening. And let me break down what I mean. Maybe you have memories, like I do, of kids not being kind to you. The word bullying gets tossed around lightly. Maybe you were bullied. For me, it was more people I thought were my friends were not really kind to me. They kind of would make fun of me in front of my face, thinking it was behind my back because they thought I didn't catch on. that was painful. And you might have something like that. Or maybe for you, it was school. Like maybe you didn't highly achieve in school and you barely graduated. We hold these things in our body. And I hate to quote Bessel van der Kolk because I'm not a fan of him as a person, but his work is excellent. Our body keeps the score. Our body holds what has happened to us. Maybe none of those things happened, and you really worked on being a people pleaser and perfectionist so much so that you didn't experience those things, but you have that deep-seated fear around bad things happening. Or maybe lately you haven't been able to keep up your people-pleasing perfectionistic ways and now are feeling scared or lost, maybe like you don't know who you are. All of that is valid. These are the pieces I'm talking about when I say inner obstacles, often invisible, because they're things that you've carried most of your life, likely from your ADHD, but it could be from other stuff too. If you grew up in a house where there was abuse or alcoholism or emotional neglect. I got to tell you, my clients in my therapy practice with emotional neglect and physical neglect, that is some of the hardest trauma to help people heal from because you get the sense that you're not worth anything. So whether it's something like that or quote unquote only the trauma of growing up neurodivergent in a neurotypical world, these things are likely holding you back because parts of you feel afraid to put yourself out there. Parts of you doubt that you can do it or doubt that you're, I don't know, able to be liked by other people, that they would buy something from you if you're a business owner. Or maybe you just have this insecurity and worry about what other people would think. And you might not even know it. But these parts of you hold it inside. And so if you've been trying strategy after strategy and switching them up because we like novelty, but they're still not working, chances are this is there and there's deeper work for you. And before I keep going, I want to pause for a moment and say, if you want to do this deeper work, this is the work we do inside my program, Ascend, the ADHD Women's Mastery Program. Sure, I share tips, tricks, and strategies as well, but this is what we do in our one-to-one coaching. It's stuff that we talk about in our small group calls so that you can actually get unstuck and do the work you need to do. And eventually don't need to stay in coaching long-term because you'll have cleared all this, or at least a good portion of the past stuff, depending on how long you choose. So if you're interested in doing that deeper work, if you feel ready, willing, and able, check out the link in the show notes. You're more than welcome to connect with me over it. So getting back on track, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, Jen, I'm not ready, willing, or able to do that, or if you're like, oh, I can't afford it, or oh, I don't have time, then in some way you're not ready, willing, and able. And that's okay. It's not like a moral judgment. You're just not ready, willing, or able. But if you know you need this work and something inside of you is not ready, willing, and able, this is an opportunity for you to lean in and get curious about what that's about. In motivational interviewing, which is a therapeutic technique that coaches also use, we get curious about how ready, willing, and able you are and what the barriers are. So you might take a moment to rate yourself. How ready do you feel to do this work? 0 to 10. 10 is, I am ready, Jen. Show me the sign up button or tell me someone else that might do this work in a way that fits me better than you, whatever it is. If you're in a 10, that's a 10. 0 is like, I don't even know if I believe you. That might be a 0, right? So 0 to 10, how ready do you feel? 0 to 10, how willing do you feel to do this work? If you're hearing things like, yeah, but I can't because, if you're hearing those kind of things, there's a part of you not willing. And again, that's a character flaw. It's not a moral judgment. It's just that there's something inside of you that isn't willing yet. So what is that part's concern? What is that part concerned would happen if you did this work? What if you were willing? What would that look like? How would you know? And then lean in and be curious and work with the part of you that is not really feeling willing, because there's some real concerns there that are important to address. One of them might be, that's a can of worms. I don't want to go there. And I totally get it. And some of that is important to consider. If it's a can of worms and you just moved, you just started a new job, you're newly married or living with someone, you just had a baby, yeah, probably it's not the right timing. So I get why you're not ready and willing. And that might also make you not able, by the way. So think about it, because there may be legitimate reasons. I mean, they're always valid reasons, but they may no longer be a fit for where you're wanting to go. And last but not least, consider, how able are you to do this work? If you are severely depressed and suicidal more days than not, then you may not be able to do this deeper work right now. You may need to meet with a therapist who can help you work through some of the layers of your depression so that you are more able to do some of this deep work, right? We need to be emotionally stable enough to tolerate working with the stuff that's keeping us stuck, because sometimes we're faced with truths that we don't like, and that can be hard. And if you're struggling to want to stay alive, that might not be the time to pile on the other things that you're unhappy about with yourself. And it might be some other reason you're not able, but let yourself think about it and let yourself sit with what is coming up for you around why you're not, or what makes you not ready, willing, and able yet. Because chances are that is your next step if you're not like, yes, I'm ready. And the reason I know that is I know that this work helps women with ADHD. I've seen it. I've done it in my therapy practice long before I help my coaching clients. I've done it myself. And now I help my coaching clients do this work. I know that this is what people need to be able to move the needle. And that also comes at a cost. So if you're like, oh yeah, I can't afford it. Well, what's that about? How could you afford it? Where are you spending money that your own wellness and happiness is not a priority? And that's not to call you out or anything, but a lot of times when we really step back and look, it's like, well, I got all the awesome subscriptions, or I pay for cable, or I get my nails done every week. Don't get me wrong, I understand it can feel nice to get your nails done. But if you're struggling in life, you can consider, is that just a Band-Aid strategy that cheers you up a little bit, that maybe you're willing to forego to actually feel better from the inside out? So, all right, I hope this was helpful. It may have been some irritating news to receive. I don't know. But I'm here to help. And as part of that, I'm not going to bullshit you. Again, if you decide you're interested in doing this deeper work, check out the link in the show notes. And if you're not following or subscribed to this podcast, depending on where you get it, I would love it if you would do that, because the more people that do that, the more people will see this podcast, and then I can help more people. So you're helping fellow ADHD women get the same help that you're getting from me. So thanks for being here. I hope you have a wonderful week, day, year, whatever it is, and I'll catch you next time. Take care.